Okay. Can you start a podcast with me, please? I need something to do.
Pastrnak sent it out in front of Malkin to save. They score! Elias Lindholm looks to the heavens.
Here's a chance. Poitras right in on goal. He scores. Oh my! What a move by the rookie.
2-on-1. Pastrnak moving in with Marchand. Get it to it. Score!
The zone. Coyle dances in. Backhand score!
Lindholm right wing corner. Pastrnak is there. He scores! David Pastrnak wins it for Boston.
Welcome in, everyone, to Bruins Tape to Tape with Maria and Caroline. I will be your host tonight. I am Maria from Watertown. I'm going to introduce my lovely co-host who, if you're watching on YouTube, you will see that she is in parts that are warm and sunny, conducting our business as usual. We're recording on January 15th, and welcome in, Caroline, and share a little bit about your location.
Absolutely. It's so good to see you. Yes, I am on location on the West Coast this week, and it is very sunny, very clear, and it was 71 degrees today. So sorry, but I'm not sorry.
No, you're not sorry, because we're freezing our collective asses off here in New England. So thank you very much. But
you're very welcome.
I'm glad you're soaking up the vitamin D. Tonight, our agenda is going to be centered around the Boston Bruins, as always, talking about the losing streak finally being over. I want to do a little bit of a temperature check in terms of, finding out how you're feeling about the team, how I'm feeling about the team. And I also want to get your thoughts about the recent roster transactions that the Bruins have made as a result of a little bit of the injury bug hitting the Bruins recently, and the impact that those transactions may have had on the team. And I also want to talk tonight with you about the upcoming trade deadline and potential strategies for the Bruins moving forward. But before we start our deep dive into that, we'll do our little spin around the rink, folks, as we usually do, just to catch up on a little bit of other news across the league. So most of you, who follow the Bruins probably are aware of the announcement that was recently made by the NHL that the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Boston Bruins will be playing an outdoor game at Raymond James Stadium on February 1st. And I, for one, am really excited about the prospect of watching hockey in an environment similar to what you're in right now.
Yeah. I don't know how they're going to make that work.
Well, I did find out today that Raymond James Stadium has a dome. So it has a retractable roof. So I think there are ways to maintain a good ice surface depending on the time of day you schedule the game, and also ensuring that roof is closed for a period of time. So I do trust the league when it comes to these games, because they've always done a really good job with the ice surface for their players.
Yep.
And this is the Lightning and the Bruins are, dare I say, developing into a better rivalry than even the Panthers.
Yeah, I agree. I actually prefer the rivalry between Tampa and Boston simply because I think it's a higher quality rivalry. I think,
and they play a more honorable game.
They do.
They're not dirty schmucks for the most part.
Yeah, it's a lot less frustrating as a Bruins fan that even if they lose to Tampa Bay, it's because Tampa actually showed up and played better as they did, as we saw earlier this week. They have a lot of high-end talent. They've done a really great job in transitioning from what likely would have or could have or should have been a rebuilding period into kind of a steady as she goes, but we're still pretty decent phase in the franchise history. And so it's those are good games. Those are high quality games, and that should be a good one. Who knows? Maybe we'll be on location in Florida for that next February.
Oh my God, that would be phenomenal. I've already started planting the seeds of getting there for like a long weekend. So I'm hoping that will come to fruition. But
Exactly.
yeah, that'd be
Exactly.
time if I do say so myself. And we're also inching ever closer to a little bit of a break for most of the league with the Four Nations tournament coming up, but that tournament is slated to start, I believe, February 12th.
Mm-hmm.
It starts in Montreal, and then the finishing games will take place at the TD Garden on February 17th and February 20th.
Mm-hmm.
If anyone's interested in going to the NHL website, all of the rosters have now been set. There are a few Bruins participating in various capacities. We have Brad Marchand, who's going to be part of Team Canada, and Charlie McAvoy will be part of Team USA, and Jeremy Swayman will also be a member of the goaltending trio for Team USA. I still think it's pretty sad that we're not going to see guys like Draisaitl, Pasta, Ovechkin. It's unfortunate. I'm not quite sure I still understand the rationale for limiting it to 4 tournaments. I mean, I understand, and I'm not going to get into the politics of it, but if you want to showcase your league, you should be showcasing all of your best players. But be that as it may, it seems like the players who are on specific rosters are getting excited about this tournament.
Yeah, it should be fun to watch. I mean, we haven't seen NHL players participate in Olympic hockey in quite a long time. And even this next Olympics, could still very well be a question mark. I know they're really pushing for it in the negotiation for the new collective bargaining agreement. So we'll have to see, but I'm looking forward to watching it.
I'll be watching it from Florida. A little bit of a trade-off between you and I.
Right?
Yeah. Hopefully at a bar, an outdoor bar somewhere with a nice cold one in my hand. So, but I find these tournaments to be pretty stimulating and pretty entertaining because the players are so invested in representing their country, and these tournaments have a lot of meaning and significance and pride for the players. So it should be really, really good hockey.
Yeah. I'm excited.
The next thing I want to touch on is a little review of the standings, because there is an impact to our Boston Bruins in the standings, as they went from being one of the top teams into the East to now they're in a wild card spot thanks to a recent 6-game losing streak. And those wild card spots are up for grabs because the standings in the East are getting pretty damn tight. You've got the Canadians crawling up your backside. You've got the Ottawa Senators crawling up your backside. Oh, and by the way, the Bruins have a couple of key games coming up against them here. One on Saturday night, actually in Ottawa. So, I want to get your thoughts on how you're feeling about where the Bruins are sitting, or, the standings in general.
Yeah. So the biggest kind of caveat that I have to remind myself pretty regularly, and I'll remind others as well, is the fact that the Bruins have played so many more games than pretty much almost every other team in the Eastern Conference. Only New Jersey and Pittsburgh have also played, I believe it's 46 games at this point. So when you look at the standings, even with Boston today sitting in a wild card position, every team below Boston in the standings they all have games in hand. And there are a few that have better points percentages than the Bruins. And so if you were to adjust the standings for points percentage, Boston right now would be out of the playoffs by 2 spots. Now, that's not a death sentence. That doesn't mean, sound the alarm, we're in trouble. If you are subscribed to our Substack and you like a little bit of math, this might be of interest to you. If it's not, too bad, because I'm going to talk about it a little bit. But hopefully it's reassuring. I looked at the last 20 some odd years, 25 years of playoff performance or the ability to make it to the playoffs. If you were in a playoff position at Thanksgiving versus does that mean you are in a good position to make it all the way to the postseason at the end of the season? And the East Coast, interestingly enough, has a lot more flexibility and variability in a team either being what I call the late surge team, which means they're not in a playoff position at Thanksgiving versus it, but then they make it, versus a dropout team, which is a team that was in playoff position at Thanksgiving and then doesn't actually make it to the playoffs. And that kind of swapping happens a little bit more on the East Coast as opposed to the Western Conference. So keep that in mind, that you have around an 80% chance of making the playoffs if you're in a playoff position on Thanksgiving. And the Boston Bruins were. So they already have that going for them. And you have a lot of that variability. And I think the fact that you can look at the playoff standings right now and you can see so many teams bunched right there, right? Mm-hmm. You've got Columbus, you have Ottawa, you have Montreal, they're all kind of going back and forth. And so those other teams, while yes, they have games in hand, Boston is going to get to that CBA break and eventually it'll all kind of catch up, and that difference may be in the wash. What they do between now and that CBA break is really the most important games, because it's really when you come back from that break, it's full bore. It's you must be pretty much there after the break. And we've seen the Bruins, and every team struggles a little bit when they come back from the break. Bruins, notably last year, really struggled coming out of the break. So it's a relief to see that they finally broke that 6-game losing streak, because they really have to get it together right now. Like, I can't stress on the things that I have seen mathematically in the past, and knowing how it's that doodlebug race potentially, or it's going to be a lot of teams really competing to get in at the end. And it's quite possible that Boston is going to get in on a wild card spot, depending on how well Tampa Bay does down this stretch as well. So pay attention, obviously, to the Bruins and how they're playing, but keep a really close eye on Tampa Bay, because that's going to be a difference maker for this team at the end, I think.
And even as piss poor as the New York Rangers have been playing this year, so they're ranked 8th right now in the wild card spot, but the point differential is a mere 6 points.
Yeah,
that's how
very close
everything is. And again, when you speak to the games in hand, these are all teams, Ottawa, Montreal, Detroit, even the Flyers, and the Rangers, who all have games in hand on the Bruins right now. So, we can, when we get to our actual, deep dive into how we're feeling about the Bruins right now, there's a question that I want to ask that I want you to start thinking about, just because, we've seen the struggles that the Bruins have had throughout the course of the season. Yeah. And would it be of any benefit in getting some of those deficiencies addressed if the Bruins actually didn't even make the playoffs? So just something, right? Again, of course we want the team in the playoffs, but in lieu of the conversations that we have had on this podcast, in our Discord, on social media, about the struggles and still some of, a couple of glaring holes that this team still has, and trying to give management the kick in the seat of its pants that it needs to finally get things addressed. Oh, and by the way, I think I just heard a report earlier this week that the Bruins have the worst prospect pool in the league. So, but let's finish our spin around the rink, because, there was a little bit of Bruins drama that was reported on earlier in the week. And a report came out that, the team's two best players seemingly didn't want to play on a line together, or whatever the case may be. Yeah. Again, I don't know whether it's true or not. I just know what I have been saying throughout the course of the season, that to me, I see there's a disconnect somewhere. Sure. I'm not saying between these specific two players, but there is a disconnect somewhere. Whatever that disconnect is, we may never find out about, but there's a lack of chemistry. Yeah. That is, to me, obvious on this team. But it doesn't even begin to compare to the drama that is playing out in Vancouver between JT Miller and Elias Pettersson. I am telling you, you can't make this shit up that is going on in that organization and between those two players.
Yeah. And, when I heard the news about the Brad Marchand and the David Pastrnak drama, I think, like most people, because of the way in which it was delivered, you broke the news in our Discord, and then we found the actual clip to hear, what the guy said and everything. And listening to that, my immediate gut reaction was thinking, well, if this is true, I was thinking about all the things that you've said this season, like, okay, maybe there is something kind of going on, whatever. Then I listened to kind of how he talked about it, and the way that he broke his side of the news story, that really started to get me to doubt kind of, it just didn't seem, it seemed a little too clickbaity and saying, this is what I'm hearing, as opposed to, if you think about the Vancouver situation, a former person from management came out and said this, right?
And that's Bro, the former coach, confirmed,
right? That's
between these two guys,
and that obviously that makes you think it's true, because this is a guy who was in the locker room. This guy on the radio, I don't care how good his source is, he's not in the locker room. He himself is not in the locker room. So
no. And I see what you're saying. And I said this in the Discord before. This particular radio show host has been fed other information that has been more than accurate. He has been right with other Bruins breaking news that he has reported. To me, what's troubling is who on the inside is giving this information, or it's something of, right? Because again, this information is coming from the same individual. And so
Right.
the same individual has provided him with information that has been more than accurate or very accurate.
Yeah.
So there's no really reason for him to have to vet this out. This is my source. This person's been right before. So to me, it's more of a question of what the hell beef does this source have with either one of those individuals
Right.
or with the organization?
Right. Or did they
wanna throw
misinterpret?
this kind of shit out there?
Right. Or they completely misinterpreted, a frustration, which I'm sure the team was frustrated because they were in the midst of a losing streak. But at the end of the day, I mean, I still lay this at the person who broke the news because, yes, maybe you've got this one source, but this is pretty, what I would call almost salacious, gossipy type stuff. And that's the kind of thing you really, really want to make sure, because you're making a pretty bold social accusation of a social situation. And you if you are a journalist or a news person, you really need to know. And at the end of the day, sometimes people make mistakes, right? When we were leading up into the Jeremy Swayman drama, some of our even favorite, most reliable news reporters on the Boston Bruins were getting it wrong early on the Jeremy Swayman contract. So sometimes this just happens too, So it's, who knows? Maybe it
We
ended up
probably should
galvanizing
thank the
them.
guy, because since the story came out, the Bruins have won 2 games in a row. So
They've been fired up. And the two of them have been on the line together.
Was calling, which I think it was a little extreme to be calling for the guy's job. Okay, just take it down a notch, Brad. I know you're,
pissed.
everyone's a little
He was
bristly. They're sick and tired of losing. It's been a rough year.
Yeah.
Likely for everyone in that room, but really to call for somebody's job, or because I think people have said worse things than that about you in the past, and you didn't say,
Yeah. But you took that one personally, I think, and that's just kind of what happens.
And here's the other thing, though, too, that I want to point out, and this was also vetted out, that when the story came out, David Pastrnak said, I've never gone to management to say that I want to play with someone or not play with someone.
Mm-hmm.
David, you're incorrect, because in the past, you did say that you wanted to play with David Krejci.
Well, yeah.
Okay, so
you got him there on a technicality.
all right, that
that doesn't count.
I just had to throw that in there. So, if again, the timing of this is probably coincidental, but if it's something that galvanized the group and they needed galvanizing, thank you, Rich Keefe of WEEI, for, putting a lighting a fire under the Bruins' collective asses.
Mm-hmm.
So the last bit of NHL news that I want to touch on, which isn't awesome news, but there's been a very troubling trend that's been developing where professional athletes are having their homes broken into. And it's happened to NFL players, it's happened to NBA players, and now it has struck the NHL in that Evgeny Malkin's home was broken into, and 3 of his Stanley Cup rings are now MIA.
Yeah. That's just crazy.
It is crazy. And it's troubling to me that, these players can be found so easily. And, maybe it's time for these teams, maybe social media accounts, to maybe take it down a notch, because they're posting everywhere about where the players are, when they're traveling, when they're going, when they're maybe just take it down a notch, just, for the time being, to see if that doesn't help, preserve some safety or some peace of mind when these players, are out on the road or they're at the arena doing their job, wondering, someone violating my privacy?
Yeah. Yep. Hopefully those get found soon, because I can't imagine, them ending up in a pawn shop and someone being like, wait a minute, what is this?
Yeah, how do you do that, right? And think that you're going to get away with it.
Yeah, exactly. The last piece actually of Around the Rink news, there's one other thing, because this one's just completely insane. If you haven't heard already, the rookie Emil Heineman, whatever his name is, from the Montreal Canadiens, he was struck by a car while they were in Utah. He was crossing the street, getting ready to go to dinner with the team, and he was hit by a car. He is okay, but he is actually out for like 3 to 4 weeks with an upper body injury. So that one's one of the more insane non-hockey related injuries to happen in a season, I think, that I've ever heard. So there you go. That's
not as funny as the story of Rasta during COVID. He had a little slip and fall after a
night of party,
after a rousing dinner.
Yeah, he hurt his thumb.
Yeah.
What a bum.
Jesus, whatever. I mean, again, they're normal. They're young. They're having a good time. God bless them.
Exactly.
All right. Before we dive into the topic of why we have this podcast, which is talking about our Boston Bruins, I'm going to take a quick break and hear from our wonderful sponsors. Playoffs. We're talking about playoffs. You bet we are. Get in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Scoring touchdowns is key to winning in the playoffs, and you can score big by betting on them at DraftKings, the #1 place to bet touchdowns. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something simple, like a player to score 6. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your pick. New DraftKings customers can bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in New Hampshire, Oregon, and Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ftball. NFL Plus Premium offer available only to new and former NFL Plus subscribers. Additional NFL Plus Premium terms at nfl.com/terms.
Welcome back in, folks. I think we're going to have a little extracurricular activity for this segment. So bear with us while we slog through this. So when last we met, the Bruins were playing like shit, and they had lost 6 games in a row. The most recent game, number 6, that they had lost was to the Tampa Bay Lightning in Tampa. I believe the final score was 4-1, and it wasn't even that close. It wasn't even that close. It was just, I believe I referred to it as dismal.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. That was not a fun game to watch at all.
No. And again, to our point that we talked about maybe during our last episode, is the fact that they're not even fun to watch, even when they were quote unquote playing well. Okay. So then we have the breaking drama with the report from WEEI as the Bruins are getting ready to practice to get ready to play the Florida Panthers. And I think we were all of the mindset of what the bleep is going to happen if they lose this game too. Right?
Yeah.
What is going to happen? Now, they won the game. They won it in overtime on a fluky goal. But Jesus Christ, they were under siege pretty much the entirety of that game against Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And if it wasn't for the fact that Jeremy Swayman made 40 saves and he actually, to your point, stood on his head and he gave them the chance to win that game, even after, stop me if you've heard this before, even after they gave up a goddamn goal with mere seconds left to tie the game.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know why I'm surprised anymore when this happens. It's traumatizing at this point.
Can we say it's not a coaching thing now? Because this has happened.
Yeah.
This scenario, this very scenario of giving up late period goals has happened under the watch of how many coaches of this team.
Yeah, I don't know how to explain it at this point. It seems like it's just how it is. They're very, very lucky that Jeremy Swayman seems to have actually really started to hit his stride. I think that the game against the Panthers was the very first time that he stood on his head for this team. And they needed it because that was also a record-breaking over 100 shot attempts made. And so that's the Corsi stat. And that was introduced to NHL record keeping in 2007. So that was unheard of. He faced over 40 shots on goal. And then it happened again when they played Tampa Bay the second time in Boston. He made another 40 plus saves. So clearly something's going on with our defense. And thank God that the offense has shown up, because how many times did we say that if the D collapses, we're screwed because they've not been able to produce goals. So,
you know, we've got 2 wins in a row. Okay. You've defeated the Florida Panthers, which have been a thorn in your freaking side now for quite some time. Okay. It wasn't pretty. And if it wasn't for your goalie finally playing, in my mind, finally playing as your franchise goalie, number 1 franchise goalie, that could have turned out very differently. Okay. So then you face the Tampa Bay Lightning on a Tuesday evening at the TD Garden. Prior to that, there were some roster maneuverings because, you know, we see a picture surface of Charlie McAvoy with a cast on his hand.
Cast or a brace or some
brace or whatever it is.
Yep.
He's out of the lineup. Hampus Lindholm is skating, which is good news.
Not there yet.
But he's not there yet. Kastelik takes a cross check to the face.
Head. Yeah.
Yep. So he's been out of the lineup. So that prompted some call-ups by the Bruins. And one in particular that's been, to me, like, I don't know why it's taken this long to get Matt Poitras back up here. But in addition to Matt Poitras, we had Vinny Lettieri was called up, and Michael Callahan, which is a nice little story. He's a local kid from Franklin playing for his hometown team.
Yeah.
And you know what? He played okay. He didn't get a ton of minutes in the Tampa Bay game, right? Because things were getting a little, I don't want to say dicey, but they were close to getting dicey.
Yes.
But, you know, to me, and I want to get your opinion on this.
Yeah.
But I think Matt Poitras had an immediate impact.
Oh my God, did he ever?
Impact.
Yes. He really has upped his game since being down in Providence. And I think we all kind of agreed, it was a good thing for him to go down there and grow and develop. He was having issues where he wasn't really ever keeping his head up and things like that, and trying to still adapt and adjust to the new schedule and the way that they play, AHL, NHL schedules for games and things. I mean, his impact was immediate. They scored within the first few minutes because he confidently brought the puck into the offensive zone, made a beautiful pass right on the tape to Trent Frederick to get that goal. And it was perfect. He had his head up. I get wanting to have him down there as long as possible because he is a pretty significant long-term investment for the Boston Bruins. But I mean, like you, I kind of was surprised that they waited this long because they were in such a need for this offensive help. And in terms of Callahan, when you are coming in for the very first time as a really any position, but in his case, defenseman, he's there as a body, and the expectation is just don't mess up. And he didn't, he did what he was supposed to do. And I think that was great. And he's probably, we are assuming, because we don't really know what the heck is going on with Charlie McAvoy, he might be playing again this weekend. Who knows?
Right. Well, there's speculation that maybe Charlie will be ready for the game on Saturday. We'll see what happens on game day. But my big takeaway and big difference for me was the fact that he brings speed, and he brings speed that has been sorely lacking for this team.
Yeah.
Since they sent him back down. Right. Yep. And that's been one of the things, as much as I'm not a Jake DeBrusk fan, and I thought it was time to move on, that lack of speed has left a significant hole.
Yeah.
Big time. Bruins.
Big time. Yeah, definitely. I was just super thrilled to see a whole bunch of kids get called up. And I think that they did a really great job, probably for the most part, because they got the call up. And so, they're excited and they have a lot to prove, and they got a lot of spunk and energy and the excitement of being called up. Who knows how long that could potentially last if a bunch of them were to stay up longer term. But you know what? We needed the win. We got the win. And that's all that matters.
Yeah. And there may be another call up, or they may stay longer because we don't know what the status of Cole Koepke is. He got rocked. I can't recall who hit him. But there was a major penalty called. I thought it was a clean hit.
It was. They did the right thing.
Result, right?
And calling it so they could review.
I hate to say it, but they made the right call. But he did not look steady on his feet.
No,
when he was helped up the ice and heading down to the tunnel. So, we'll have to keep an eye on whether or not, someone else gets called up. And I thought too, going back to the roster transaction, I thought Vinny Lettieri played a good game, and he got some good looks.
Yeah, he's a great player to call up because at this point he's an AHL veteran, and he's been up down so many times with so many different teams. This is his second go around with Boston. So he knows the system. He does a really great job, and he did exactly what they needed him to do. So it was good to have someone like him going up with two other guys because, he can also serve as a mentor and a guide for those two. Manny Poitras was called up for a while last year, but he didn't know what he was doing. And this is Callahan's first time. So I thought that was a really smart move for once for management about how they called up their AHL folks. So I was happy.
Yeah. And, the Tampa Bay game also had a couple of firsts for a couple of members of the Boston Bruins. We had, was it Tyler Wotherspoon? Got his first NHL goal, which I think some of us found a little bit like,
I had no idea he never scored.
So that gave the Bruins, a 2-0 lead. The captain made it 3-0 early in the second period on a snapshot. And I have to say that
that was gorgeous.
Andrei Vasilevsky did not look sharp in that game. He just looked like he had no idea what to do with any of his angles, which were fortuitous for the Bruins because it gave them an opportunity to push the score up to 4-0 before Tampa finally scored, right? And then,
I don't think he's been right since his surgery at all.
No, and you know what? The guy has played a lot of hockey, and and we all know goaltenders are wired differently, but I think they wear down.
They do
a little bit quicker than a quote unquote regular skater might wear down simply because of, the workload that they're asked to maintain, the amount of rubber that's coming at them in certain circumstances, night after night after night.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now that the Bruins have won 2 games in a row, little temperature check. Are you feeling any differently? Are you feeling any better? Part 1. Part 2 will be based on however you respond to part 1. Buyers or sellers at the trade deadline?
I don't feel any better. I don't feel any different. This team has been incredibly streaky and unreliable. Even when they've done really well, I've always been waiting for the other shoe to drop. They just haven't shown that level of consistency. So they're going to have to really participate in the trade deadline. I think they're going to have to go all out and do a little bit of both. They're going to have to participate in third-party financing because you can already see they're getting a little creative on paper with putting Hampus Lindholm on retroactive LTIR. So, and then 2 other guys on the IR. So that way they can afford to bring these call-ups, even just to play these regular games. So they have $500,000 in cap space. That's not even the league minimum wage. That's
Chump
like 7
change.
something.
Yeah. Chump
So
change.
they're gonna have to trade in bodies and not just in draft picks and prospects. They have some names of people down in Providence that could very well be considered prospects and they can use them. I think we're going to be saying goodbye to somebody on the big league team
Trent Frederick. Trent Frederick.
Although I got to tell you, I've been hearing rumors, and this rumor I do not like, Justin Brazeau. Because I do, he's been really having a great season. And
I've heard Brandon Carlo's name thrown around too. So,
right. So, although I'm not 100% sure that Brandon Carlo, he has a, MNTC clause. So, obviously that means he can, there are some teams that he could be sent.
Half the team has that clause, which I think is a problem in and of itself.
Yeah.
With the Boston Bruins.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Too many guys with no movement clauses.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
they're going to have to go big or quite literally go home. I don't know if they do make the playoffs. I don't have a ton of confidence in their ability to make it outside the first round.
So Cam Neely agrees with your assessment.
Oh, good. You better listen to me.
I know, and I know how much you love Cam.
Yeah.
There was a report that just came out today, 6:08 p.m., posted by Amelie Benjamin, that Cam Neely said the team has to prepare for, quote unquote, 2 paths into the trade deadline, a buy scenario and a retool scenario, which I'm fine and I'm open to that. I'm not so sure that I'm open to having Don Sweeney and Cam Neely making those decisions moving forward.
Yeah. I don't know. It's going to be nerve-wracking, and I know that there's a number of teams who do find themselves in a similar situation to Boston, maybe not quite in terms of their team being this up and down somewhat disappointment, but rather they are a team that's been on the cusp for a little while. You know, I'm talking the Ottawa Senators, the Detroit Red Wings, Columbus, like these teams that have been trying to get back into the playoffs. And I think they're going to try and be really aggressive, because I think if they think they are within striking distance and they have a chance of making the playoffs,
Right.
they're also going to be aggressive. And the thing is, those teams tend to have a lot, and they have a lot more cap space.
Yeah.
So they have a lot more cap space, so they won't need third-party financing, so to speak. And that they have the money that they can just do it themselves. You know, they don't have to get another team on board to help with this. So we'll see.
We'll
Who
see.
wants to do business with Boston?
Yeah, we'll see what kind of business they conduct, but I'm not sure that I'm comfortable with having that duo conducting business when you clearly need to do some type of a retool. You don't have to do a full rebuild, but you've got to retool. And I'm not sure that they are the ones that should be making those decisions moving forward. But that's a podcast for a different day. We'll just quickly wrap things up with checking in on our regular segment, or doing our regular quick segment on overall stick taps and penalty box.
Okay. I think we're seeing more and more players getting stick taps from us. We talked about Jeremy Swayman. He's actually, even though his overall season save percentage is still a little bit under 900, his goals against average is below 3. He's actually just reached a pretty big milestone for Bruins goalies. He is officially 10th most wins by a Bruins goaltender, 3+ save. And since Christmas, he's actually posted a 925 save percentage, which is pretty darn good. We also have Pasta, who, last week we kind of speculated, like, is he back? Is he not? Like, we need to see a few more games. I still want to see a few more games because we haven't quite seen all of his eliteness yet. But at the end of the day, this guy, he has 15 out of the last 20 games, he's earned points, and he's got 26 points in 20 games. And that's pretty fantastic. He's really racking up those points and assists. He's almost there, I think. And the defensemen as individuals have also been accomplishing quite a lot. We've got Lorai. Yes, he's still making some of the silly mistakes and things, but he's growing, and he's, doing what he needs to do. He's been pretty decent on the power play as the point there.
One of the quarterbacks
has been, defending his teammates in a way that we hadn't seen in a while. And then you've got
he's still
and Peeke
still questionable
their
decisions.
First goals. One is an NHL.
Yeah. So I like the fact that Zadorov is stepping up. Yeah. And we've missed that. We haven't had that in a long time. So I love the fact that he will defend his teammates no matter what. So I do give him a ton of credit for that. And our overall penalty box, to me,
oh my God, the injuries.
Power play is not leaving this friggin' box. It's just
the power play. No,
right.
It's still basically hurting the team, actively hurting this team.
Yes,
it's horrific.
Yes,
it's just awful.
Yeah, it is. It's awful.
And the late scoring. I mean, it's gotten bad. I think this is probably one of their highest number of times that they've done that in a season. I wouldn't be surprised if that's a fact.
And one of our Discord friends, Mary Beth, actually said that the Bruins should petition the league to shorten periods to 19 minutes because that seems about all they can play in a period without giving up late goals.
Yeah. Yep. Pretty much. So I don't know that those things are going to be leaving the penalty box anytime soon, unfortunately.
No, and injuries. I've got the injuries in there because it seems like injuries are starting to pile up a little bit for the Bruins at probably not an opportune time, or some may say maybe it's an opportune time because a lot of these players will be, hopefully with their feet up resting someplace nice and sunny and warm during the Four Nations tournament where they can heal and get ready for the slog that will be the second half of the season.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
With that said, we thank you all for listening. We thank our sponsors. And in closing, take it away.
Go Bees.
Go Bees.
Oh my God, Maria, what a day. This is insane.
Like a fucking comedy of what else?
God.
The leaf blowing,
Could you hear it?
A little bit, yeah.